Mindy, is Mr. Keenan going to be joining you?
Yeah, I'm changing my name so that when he appears, he's supposed to be on too.
There you go. Okay. Just checking. Looks like we're just waiting on Lynn.
Len and Mr. Keenan.
Yeah. There's Lynn.
Hey,
Hello.
yeah, I was in some kind of holding cell or something.
Yep, because you had to be promoted to host. So
Promoted.
William had to promote you to host. That's all.
Now, see, Lauren waits until Lynn comes in, and then she pops up on the screen.
Lolo.
Scene.
What's up?
How's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. Oh, I'm being distracted by chat.
Well, that was easy.
So, Min, what's the deal with order? I mean, Don will go for 90 minutes and then we each get a couple minutes.
No, it's a 90-minute total seminar. So Mr. Keenan's going to do his time and Lauren is the moderator. So she's got it.
So Lauren, am I going at the end with the hit lists?
Yes.
All right, because that'll give me some time to echo what you and Mindy and Papa Don are saying.
Awesome.
All right.
Yep, you'll follow me.
Can you tell in the background, like no one can hear what I'm saying right now, right?
Everybody can hear you right now.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, William.
Anytime I can help.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I just want you to know we've had about 60 new signups for the listserv.
Oh yeah, that's
Just
great.
because they heard y'all are doing this.
Well, William, we know we need to keep you busy.
I don't need no help with that.
Well, that's what we're here for.
God.
All right, I'm going to mute myself before I get into trouble.
All right, here comes Mr. Keenan. We hope.
And then Lauren, take it away as soon as Mr. Keenan comes up. There you go. Lauren, it's all you.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Lauren Bronson, the Tractor Trailer listserv moderator. And I'm so excited that we're having this webinar. It's going to be a full 90 minutes. And so we want to make sure that we're going to get a lot done packed into this hour and a half. And so let me give you a review of what we've got lined up today. First, we're going to hear from Papa Don. And then Mindy Bish is going to talk with us about what we should be doing before we file our lawsuit. Then I'm going to talk about what we should be doing after we file the lawsuit, but before the first deposition. And then Len Gabe is going to talk with us about depositions and depo hit lists. And I just want to let you all know there's a button at the bottom of your screens called, I believe you use the chat, which is for you all to ask questions as we go along. So feel free to shoot your questions to us so the panel can answer them as we go along. So now I will turn it over.
Lauren, if I may,
Yes, William.
I would prefer everyone to use the Q&A button instead, because if you enter a question in the chat, it may get lost in all the chatter. So if you have a question for the panel, please use the Q&A button, and then we can address those questions as they come up.
Great, thank you, William. So please use the Q&A button. Thank you. And now I'll turn it over to the great Papa Don.
I don't know about how great, but it is a shocker though. I hope many of you didn't come on this webinar and the first thing you see is a full screen of Langabay. I don't care how much sleep you got. I don't care what your routine is. I mean, to tell you, if you don't have any forewarning of it, I mean, it'll shock you. It just really will. But I do love him, aside from all his flaws. Okay? And he gives us hope that those of us with flaws can succeed as well. So, Lynn, I love you. Good news. The college, which was about dead a month ago, because nobody was going to get on an airplane. Nobody wanted to come to any of the physical sites, Texas, Vegas, etc. I mean, we were planning for massive layoffs and at the same time just putting a lid on the college. And then all of a sudden we started using this video conference thing. We've always used in the past, but never like this. Well, here's the good news. Attendance at the college has tripled. There are waiting lists on every single course. And it's just amazing. I think one, the technology of doing this, even though you don't have the interpersonal touchy-feely kind of thing, when you do the risk benefit and you find you're not getting on an airplane, you're not coming to a hotel, it's a win-win. So frankly, I don't know if we're going to be able to get people back to the physical classroom. It's going to be tough if we do. I guess we'll offer it as an alternative. So that is really good news. It's also good news that the bad news you have of just sitting around trying to figure out how am I going to fill my day. Well, there are people who have figured out a way to take 10 courses in a month and graduate. Well, that's pretty good. So if you haven't done it already, I see there's about 125 on this call. You know, for God's sake, line up, take some of these courses. And remember now, it ain't about the money. You need a scholarship, just apply for it. Nobody requires you to put forth your tax returns or anything. I mean, if you have been taking a lot of courses, or if you think you don't have a bright future, then for God's sake, don't let that stop you from coming to the college. And Mindy, when she has her time, she, who is the Lord Queen of seminars, is going to tell you what the process on the seminar stuff is. Second, and this is exciting, all of the volumes, all 5 of them, soon to be 6, of The Edge, 400 plus pages per, has now been consolidated into an electronic anthology. And man, is it something. I mean, you can word search. Everything is organized under its category. Greg Luther and I just recently returned from a 5-week trial in Chicago. And as I usually do, I review what I've written about. So I'm not a hypocrite. Plus I forget some of the stuff. And before this anthology, I'm going to have to stack up all 5 edges and go through, well, what was an opening statement on the first one? Well, What was on cross-examination of the second? Man, this electronic thing is just slap ass easy because it's all searchable. It's all organized by topic. And for those of you that have even purchased one or two of the prior edges, well, then you get it half price, okay? But again, if you can't afford this thing, just say so. That's not going to put you outside the tent. Now, I just want to touch on several specific problems that have been either created or made less by this damn virus. First of all, let me tell you that the attitudes of jurors on every kind of case is changing daily. I have never seen anything in the history of focus groups or attitudinal surveys or anything that has such a fluid change of people's opinions on things. Now, that's good and that's bad. The bad is if you don't know what it is, then you're going to be heading into a damn tunnel with a freight train coming at you. And a lot of it is good. But let me tell you, one of the first problems is those people who have been trained to do the standard focus group, and you know who they are, those that ain't been trained to do it at all, but are Karnak the Magnificent and can simply put the case up to their forehead and say, oh, I know how to do that focus group. Unfortunately, both camps I've seen, and I've audited a number of focus groups in the virus time, unfortunately are doing it wrong. So Mindy is the one who suggested, hey, let's do a webinar, seminar, whatever, on how to do the damn thing correctly, all right? And Mindy will likewise will tell you what that date is and how to sign up and all that kind of stuff when she has the microphone. But here's why it's so important to recognize the fluidity of this changing landscape. Our last in-person focus group was, I guess, about 7-8 weeks ago. And it was the day before. It was here in at Seaside at our focus group setup. And it was literally the day before. We didn't know it at the time, but the day before the governor ordered everybody to shelter. But something was out there. Something was in the wind. And you could tell it in people's general comments. And so I decided to flip into a series of 5 standardized questions to gauge their attitude, just find out what it was. And I didn't know it at the time because that's the problem with this damn thing. We don't know what tomorrow brings. So I decided that I would use that same template serially, whatever. Len will tell you what that word is. It's like back to back to back to back, okay? Because he's a smart guy. And so essentially, we've done 7 focus groups with the same template. So we're able to show the pulse from week to week on this stuff. And we're doing one tomorrow, I believe. And we'll do the template again. But in the very beginning, just to show you the contrast without going into all of it, while they knew what the virus was, virtually nobody knew how you got it, right? They didn't know. But more importantly, nobody knew anybody who had it. They'd heard about it. And then even more importantly, nobody knew anybody who died from it. And I'm not talking about some celebrity or some 95-year-old poet or something. I'm talking about family friend. Okay. Now, it doesn't take a forensic jury expert. Boy, isn't that a damn oxymoron, expert forensic jury. Okay. But you knew I'm talking about, them people that pontificate and interpret without being a lawyer and without trying a case. Okay. But you understand that the last focus group we ran, all but one or two of them knew somebody very closely who had the virus and was coping with it. And all but two of them knew somebody, a family friend, coworker, somebody who died. Okay. Now, let me tell you, y'all, when you see complete swings in attitudes towards responsibility, accountability, you cannot dismiss the fluidity of these attitudes. They dictate it. All right. Now, I don't want to get into it here, but because we've been following it and because I have been networking with some experts that I do trust, it would appear that if we prepare our cases correctly and we know the target, when we come out of this virus to a new normal, whatever it is, and by coming out, I mean, we're able to go to restaurants, we're able to go to churches, okay? Now, who knows what that's going to be? And that's another fluid thing. Very first focus group, it was, oh shit, this is going to be, end of May, we'll be back doing everything we were doing before. Well, that attitude certainly has shifted. You know, and many people peg it as 2021, mid 21. So shelter until that time, all right? Now, you may want to put them in a category of shit happens. It's going to be bad, it's going to be real bad, or you can put them in a category that they live their life in the preventative mode, okay? And there's a way to tell the difference in the two of them. But the bottom line here is if we do it right, we listen to the hoofbeats, there could be more fertile ground for better, bigger, fuller verdicts after this thing's over, okay? So do not think you live in a damn bubble where this stuff is irrelevant. This stuff, and what we do now is probably going to change your life until you die. It is that profound, okay? Now, two specific things that I want to pass on to you about this virus, and I put this out a couple of weeks ago because a black hat told me about it. And he tells me, he says, man, you guys are in the world for shit now. I said, well, how come? Well, you always put us there, so tell me, what is it this time? He said, well, you're not going to be able to get a plumb nickel from pain and suffering or mental anguish or any of those silly ass damages that you all the time wave the bloody flag and get compensated for. That's over, brother. And I said, well, how come? He says, every one of your damn worthless clients are going to admit huge angst, huge depression, huge uncertainty from the virus. They're going to. And we got questions, template questions, to nail them on it if they try to run from it. So the fact of the matter is, how are you going to get a plumb nickel for pain and suffering when their whole life has been consumed with this virus and people they know are dying from it and they've lost their job? They're going to lose their home. How are you going to convince them that they had any pain and suffering? Well, we are dickwad, okay? And I've worked with Elizabeth Larrick, who has been the first and only, and as long as she's living, dean of witness preparation. And we have created a template full of armor and bulletproof gear to stop that shit. Not only stop it, but when the client sees it coming, be able to swift boat it, turn around, and yam it up in the dark spaces. Okay? So a big concern initially, but like with everything we've done, stay calm, be the woodpecker, figure out and be convinced there is a way out of this. There always has been for 11 years, and there's always going to be. But we got to stop panicking. Okay. Now, I hadn't planned to say this, but let me go ahead and say it. I wrote that blog last week about the toxicity of uncertainty. And we are in, and I've searched for the term that I can use with the lawyers that I work with, use with focus group, and use with jurors once we get back to describe what the hell is going on here, okay? And after surveying all the appropriate words, the one word that I think comes the closest to describing everybody is uncertainty. We just don't know. And therefore, it's the ripe environment for doing something damn stupid. And boy, do we have some stupid shit going down. You know, in fact, the psychiatrist or whatever, you know, predict this is going to be the highest point of divorces there's ever been. Because people are just going to be all discombobulated and shit, and they're not happy about nothing. And they say, I wanted to get divorced years ago. Shit, now it's time to do it. Let's do it. Pull the plug, get the fuck out. And a lot of other things. Uncertainty requires you think, to be proactive and do something. So here's how it impacts on us, y'all. Of course, you've got every pots and pans, rainmaking wannabe out there selling something on trial practice, okay? Hell, there's about a dozen out there now who are offering daily webinars and shit for free. Because it's easy. I mean, shit, you get a Zoom account, you sit, you get some kind of mailing list, and boom, all of a sudden, bang, you're a fucking expert. So it's not as difficult, doesn't have as many obstacles as it does the traditional way before. So you're going to see more of it, okay? In fact, I predict every day you may have 4 different options to go learn a new opening statement, okay? And I know that there's a lure to it, okay? It's eye candy. Oh, it's a new thing, okay? But let me tell you, that's where the toxicity comes in. Because, you know, y'all put so much time and effort into learning the basics of the edge. And believe me, it ain't easy. It ain't easy. And so now is not the time to say, oh, well, shit, let me do a trial by walrus voir dire. Let me try that. But I'll do the edge voir dire, but I'll do the trial lawyer college opening. Well, good luck trying to figure out what that is, because and you know that they've imploded, they're suing each other and all. It's sad. It's very sad. Doesn't help any of us when one of the soldiers are fighting unnecessarily. So I hope they just quit it. All right. But the fact of the matter is, I got a flyer that has 4 speakers with 4 different versions of how to do the opening statement. I mean, if the truth be told, that's the reason why we started the college, because you all were frustrated with going to one of those things, getting inundated with the speaker's way of doing things, then going back to the hotel and find out everybody else got something different. And so when we first started the college, it was, please, would you stay on the same page? Would you be consistent? Okay, if we don't like it, we can move on. But, you know, it shouldn't be a salad bar. And so that salad bar is perfect for uncertainty, okay? So if you want to go off experimenting, fine, okay? And if you come back, that's even better, all right? But the one thing not to do, and it's almost in my mind, it's like getting in a canoe with a rapid current, but you don't want just one canoe. No. You want to have 2 canoes. So one foot's in one foot's in the other, and then you're heading down the river into a certain waterfall. Now, how far are you going to get by that kind of instability? No, you got to pick your friggin' canoe and stay in it, all right? So the second and last thing that I want to tell you, that's a good thing about this virus is, you know, we have taken years and a lot of lecturing and articles to take our battlefield out of an event and making it into a system failure. Okay. And the biggest difference between the reptile that worked for us for a long time, was very good, and the edge, and the reason why the edge needed to move on, say goodbye to the reptile, is because the reptile didn't have much, if any, recognition of system failure. Whereas that is clearly the core, one of the 3-legged stools of the edge. And so what better case than a tractor trailer, commercial vehicle, Lyft, Uber, whatever, okay? For those of us who have practiced in this area for the longest time, we know there is no such thing as an event. It is all tracked back to a system failure, okay? Now, why is that important? If somebody does want to get mentally tortured and does want to watch TV all the time, and you see the constant drumbeat of the horrors, okay, it spells the total breakdown of safety systems. And let's just note the hospital, okay? You know, what happened in here? Okay, and the focus groups have been dead on it, okay? You got the heroes, the doctors and the nurses. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, they're working 22 hours a day. Oh, they're really putting their life on the line and getting screwed by the hospital chain. It's not giving them the equipment. It's working them like friggin' dogs. And if there's one thing that's clear about this virus, it is the system failure. You know, it's like we did a focus group, I think it was last week or the week before, where one of the jurors says, you know, the one thing that's really been sad about this whole virus thing is it's exposed this wretched healthcare system that some of us may have suspected was there, but boy, do we know it. Do we know it now? And so there ain't no question. You do an attitude survey, 1 to 10, 10 the best, 1 in the shitter, and nurses, doctors, etc. They're 10s. Healthcare networks, hospitals, and the new word that Bubba like, conglomerates. They get 1s and 2s. They are the culprits. Okay. Well, we've always known for years that the farmer is not the bad guy, haven't we? It's that middleman. It's that broker. It's that who they're making the money. Poor damn farmer, knuckles bloody. They ain't making no money. This is the same thing that we're seeing in the tractor trailer cases. Yes, we are. The victim, and we've known this for a while. Come on, haven't we? The victim is the damn driver. The victim is the poor damn mechanic who doesn't have the tools and doesn't have the replacement equipment, doesn't have any of that shit. But Bubba also knows, more so now than ever, if something go wrong, guess who's getting the blame? Guess whose head goes on the chopping block? Yeah, you're right. Okay. So other than malpractice, the one type of case that is just benefiting on steroids, if you try it right, is the tractor trailer commercial vehicles. Okay. Now here's another sad reality, and I'll just tell you this from my experience. You know, I've done a lot of commercial inadequate security cases, you know, apartments, high rises, and whatever. And of course, that is usually about, well, they didn't have enough cameras, they didn't have enough security guards, they didn't monitor the foreseeability, which I'll get to as my last comment. And yet, you know, there is a benefit, as Mindy will tell you, for being a geezer, you know, being around for a while. Okay. You know, it's like Yogi Berra said, you know, you can observe a lot by watching. Okay. Smart guy. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, every time the economy goes down, every time, crime goes through the roof. Well, of course, because the bad guys need money from somewhere. But here's the thing you got to understand. Security also goes down. It's the first thing that gets cut. Okay. Well, do we really need 4 security guards? No. Okay. And likewise, tractor trailer, do we really need a spotter? You know, do we really need to limit the driving to 7-8 hours? Hey, come on. We can't afford to do it anymore. All right. So the economy, at least anybody try to argue with me that the economy is in the shitter now and it's gonna be worse, okay? All those proclamations, this is gonna be worse than the Depression. Now, what was that? That was people jumping off buildings, okay? That's when people peeled off the sole of their shoe and boiled it. That's what Depression was all about. And for a lot of people, I hope none of you, that's what's coming. So if there ever was such a thing as trucking safety, it's gone now. It's going to slide. It is going to slide. So my second point is the tractor trailer cases, commercial cases are through the roof on juror attitudes if you hit them right. Okay. And number 2, the cases are just going to explode in terms of numbers. You know, your phone's going to ring off the friggin' hook. Ain't no question about it. Okay. So, Lauren, it's yours. That was all I mean, obviously I can answer questions. Jay, I'm looking at his. He says, "Boy, that was funny. That trial by walrus." Okay. Well, did I say that? Yeah, I did. I did say that. Okay. Danny Ellis, our great stalwart there in Chattanooga, asks about what about broker cases? Oh, broker, Jesus. What do you think the anger about, I can't get a face mask, I can't get tested? You think that single supplier direct on shit. Bubba's convinced it's the broker making all the money. Okay. And then did you see today? Oh my God, I have stopped trying to think that the evil in the White House has reached this limit. Yeah, it's unlimited. His son-in-law, who heads up the task force to find all the equipment and shit, okay, created a special list for friends of the White House. So they get theirs first. Okay, can you imagine? Bubba is not surprised. Bubba knows that happens. And here's the one thing that has been clear about our attitude focus groups. And this is surprising. Okay, folks, how many of you, if you wanted it or needed it, how many of you can get tested? 7 weeks, 15 to 20 focus groups members each week, to include nurses, healthcare professionals. Not a damn one of them said, I can get tested if I want to, or I did get to. Every one of them are absolutely convinced that the way the world is set up right now, they ain't getting a test. Same question. The vaccine, which don't exist right now, but when the vaccine becomes available, are you going to be the first in line? Are you going to get it? Are you going to be safe? How many of y'all think you're going to get the vaccine? Not a damn one. And yet 95% want it. There are the 5%, that the anti-vaccines, period, people, okay? And then, God forbid, this thing gets in your lungs and starts working its poison against you. Are you going to be able to get a ventilator? Are you? They laugh. All right. It's not a serious question to Bubba. Bubba don't go back and forth with, oh, I need to analyze whether I'll get one or not. They're not going to get one. Now, what does that tell you about the world Bubba perceives himself living in? What part of the system failure broke down for all of that? My final thought, we need to do better on these tractor trailer cases, Uber cases, Lyft cases, commercial cases. I think we've done and I'm speaking from, 11, 12 years of dealing with some of the best lawyers in the country who come to Seaside, and we are co-counsel on cases, and we work to be Jesus out of them, okay? So from that standpoint, I think we all can be proud about developing the anti-event pro-system failure template, how to discover it, how to prove it, the voir dire questions that are necessary, the structure of the opening, the method of proof, and then finally the closing. We've got the system for trying the system case, except we have failed to concentrate on one of the biggest emotional buttons There is. And you know it's in your case. But I wonder if you've done everything to dig it out and you've done everything to analyze it so that you can present it to Bubba. Okay? And it's the profit reason. Profit reason. Because the one thing, this started breaking at about the third or so, maybe the fourth virus focus group. And mind you, the virus template questions take 30 minutes. So this was at the front of cases like Mindy is lined up tomorrow, where we're going to be going into actual cases, right? But after about the third or fourth, we started seeing Bubba anger coming out. So, I want to know where's the anger? And the anger is, yeah, I'm not getting, and there for a while, you couldn't find a face mask. You had to get a bandana or something, or find somebody who had a Harley and got the neck chief there. But there for a while, you couldn't even find face masks, for God's sake. Okay. But when it became painfully clear that Bubba wasn't going to get the test, Bubba wasn't going to get the vaccine, and Bubba was going to be heading to the graveyard before anybody even thinks about getting him a ventilator. Well, Bubba, how come that be? Somebody's making a ton of money behind this. Okay. Now, I knew full well, because I've won inadequate security cases by just arguing that, by quantitating it. Hoy and I did it in the Boston case. They cut back on security guards. They had a proposal to put video cameras appropriately, but then decided because of the cost, they weren't going to damn do it. And then the night in question, they had a big party in the lobby where they shunted all of the security to watch the liquor, but not watch the parking garages, where a man who had raped 2 weeks earlier was still out there. Okay. So we tried that case by quantitating how much money they were saving. What does it cost to do adequate security? What you son of a bitches cut back on, and how much you pocketed in the process. Profits over people. That's the default motive in every single case. Most of the time you can't prove it, but if you can, you better drive it. So what am I saying? We prove the system failure in the tractor trailer cases, but we suck at proving the financial incentive reason. How much are they spending versus what they should be spending? Okay. Now, the closest I came was in the Arkansas Malone Trucking Company case, where the thing that struck me very early was just the absolute sheer incompetence of this driver. Convicted felon. Hadn't lasted in any job more than 60, 90 days. I mean, why would a reputable big tractor trailer conglomerate hire this shitball? Okay. Never could figure it out until I'm actually driving down to the beach, which I like to do because of, can't do it anymore because of my head injury, can't see out of my right eye. But back in the day when I was driving, I enjoyed it, okay, because it would be peace and I could listen to the radio and get commentary. And I love to listen to the trucker channel on Sirius, okay. And so I was listening to it, 4.5 hour drive, okay. And if you haven't listened to it, please listen to it, because most of the big trucking lines, they advertise. They want drivers, okay? But the most prolific advertiser was Malone. Oh man, they had damn music in the background and they had this real country announcer, whatever. And their tag was, you know, if you're dissatisfied with where you be, come home to Malone. We got a place for you. Okay. They also said, we're very forgiving about records, driving records. Okay. And so then it hit me. It hit me. This is nothing more than getting butts in the seat. They had to do it, because if they didn't have the drivers, nobody was going to be rolling their trucks. That was the motive for hiring this shitball. They didn't care about competency and qualifications. It showed, but I knew I had to tell Bubba, why'd they do this? It's also a good springboard. Well, they wanted to make money on this deal. I'll tell you what, the only way to get them to understand how dangerous that is to hit them, you know where. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we need to concentrate, whatever the system failure is, we need to quantitate it to money. How much are they saving? How are they saving? Okay. I mean, if they're using retro parts and the part failed, I want to know how much money they save by using that damn retro part. I want to know how often they do it. I want a figure. I want a number. Okay. And let me tell you this. Back before this virus, and we got sidetracked with this damn thing, you know, I remember occasionally, you know, simply asking Bubba, hey, as far as tractor trailer on the highway, you got to pass them, they got to pass you. You know, what are you most fearful of? What is it? I don't know about you, but I was consistently surprised that it was retread tires coming apart, tire separation. Even the housewives, they couldn't even describe what a retread was, knows that, you know, they've seen hunks of rubber all over the highway and figures that that came from a damn tire that just came apart. And new tires don't come apart. It's these retread things that come apart. Big danger. Well, I've handled those cases, maximized it. But I failed the cases because I didn't quantitate specifically how much money the sons of bitches were saving by placing all of us in jeopardy. That's the button. Prior to that, it's just a fucking argument. You provide the button. Bubba gonna be like Buford Pusser in Walking Tall. I know that's one of y'all's favorite movies, okay? Where Sheriff Buford takes that 2x4 and he goes into town and he just whoops ass on all the bad guys. The whorehouses, the liquor distilleries, the whole 9 yards. I mean, just whoop ass. I'd go see Walking Tall just to see the whoop ass scenes. They're just classic, okay? That's what Bubba do. You show the profit to him. Bubba gonna grab that 2x4. So Lauren, oh, I'm sorry. Another friggin' thing I wanted to say. I'm not trying to be a naysayer here, but it breaks my heart to look down at all of the incredible lawyers that are on this listserv. And this listserv is dead. I mean, you can't hear crickets, for God's sake. I don't understand that. You know, Lauren has done everything she possibly can. So what the hell is the problem here, y'all? You know, we have other listservs, the malpractice listserv, the opening statement listserv, the good God Almighty, the employment listserv. Jesus, popping all the time. Great discussions. And then come over to this so valuable and critical listserv. Nothing. Now, it'd be one thing if I looked at the list of people on the listserv and it ain't got some rock stars. It ain't got some really killer trial lawyers. And I understand the phenomena of people just getting on and voying, just watching, that's all. But come on, let's step up. Let's get some discussions going. You know, let's talk about some of the things I just laid down, all right? And Lauren will, and we've got a full-time employee with the Edge, full-time, whose job it is to stimulate prime discussions. But man, if there's nothing going on, there ain't nothing to stimulate. So anyway, I commend Lauren for her vigilance and hope that this will spur some damn discussions and shit. So Lauren, I'm out of here. I'm going to darken my my thing, and then I can't wait to hear from Iranian Afghani Jews that are some of my favorite, and maybe a geezer or two, Mindy. I don't know. So, okay. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Papa Don. Before you go, so let me throw, Papa Don, Danny Ellis had a question for you about, is there any change with jurors' attitudes towards truckers since they're bringing us our toilet paper? Very valuable, essential.
Is that some kind of East Tennessee joke or something? I mean, hell, if a liquor store in Massachusetts offers 5 rolls of toilet paper for every case of liquor they sell, you know how damn valuable the tissue paper is. No, listen, here's the thing. It's not quite, Danny, to the point of a doctor or a nurse. But listen, you know, the food that we're eating, sheltered in, the toilet paper, as you so aptly keyed in onto, so, but I don't know what your special interest is for that, but they're heroes. Thank you, Mr. Trucker. Thank you for keeping commerce going here. I mean, they're the equivalent to the nurses, doctors, et cetera, okay? They ain't the problem. So we've learned for the longest time, unless you absolutely have to, don't make the trucker the bad guy or the bad woman. Make them a victim. And most of the time we're successful about doing that. They know they're getting screwed. And I'll tell you what, the truckers that I know got good friends. They think, and they should, believe they're doing a patriotic duty out there hauling the toilet paper back and forth across the country. They really do. So it is a big deal. So Danny, thank you for the question. Now you're out of questions. I already answered 2 now. Mindy not going to let you have any more. You can maybe get somebody else to ask for you. So was that it, Lauren?
Yes, thank you, Papa Don.
You bet.
All right. Mindy, I believe it's
Yep.
now. Take it away.
So what I wanted to deal with is the things that we can be doing now during when the courts are closed, when you have some defense counsel who are not cooperating, how do we prepare our cases to go to trial? Most of you know I am a member of the Keenan law firm. I handle the tractor trailer cases. I also handle the premise cases. Greg Luther, who's on this call, is a member of the Keenan law firm. He does med mal, and Russell Button handles all the products cases for the firm. And one of the things that we've been emphasizing is this: wouldn't it be great when the courts open and they bring you in California, they're going to bring you in for status conferences, trial setting conferences to get your trial date reset. And so one of the things that we got, that Stacy got from Mr. Keenan, is the notion of sending out a letter to them and saying, you better get ready, you know, even to the adjuster. When the courts open, we're ready to rock and roll, and we're going to be ready for trial the day we file. And so what does that mean that we do? Number one is that we do focus groups. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I went through it with Len and Lauren and Mr. Keenan last week. And that's why we realized that focus groups, Zoom focus groups, are going to take a whole day. Mr. Keenan has done it. Basically, his word to me was, you set them once a week, set them twice a week until I can get a handle on where this is. So we have 7 or 8. I think by the time we do the seminar, we'll have probably close to 10 consecutive weeks of Mr. Keenan asking the same identical questions to see how people are moving. So one of the interesting facts that go to Danny is Mr. Keenan asked a focus group whether they thought tractor trailers were more dangerous now with coronavirus. And the answer to their question was yes, because those tractor trailer drivers are driving through all those towns. They're touching all of those things. They're touching their cargo, and they put us at greater risk of transmission of the disease right now. Now, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but what Mr. Keenan has been working on is, what do we do with that now that we got it? So, you know, maybe in your focus grouping, you have to start asking them, just the way that you take a tractor trailer driver off code or the company off code, what does the company do to provide for your safety as you're driving through all these towns? One of the things that Mr. Keenan tells us is to watch the news. If you've been watching the news a lot, I want to say that it's New Mexico, I believe, is where it is. Or somewhere it was, is it Paris, New Mexico? At any rate, it's a place where truckers are going through, and they just had a huge increase in the coronavirus because they have the tractor trailer traffic that's going through. And so Gallup, thank you, Ken. And so one of the things that we want to do is watch the news, because that's what Bubba's seeing too. So tractor trailer from one focus group, which is not enough. Mr. Keenan will tell you it's not enough to come to a conclusion, but it's enough to know that Bubba is thinking about the fact that a tractor trailer company that puts their people on the road right now, if they're not emphasizing face masks and safety and hand washing and all of the thing with their own drivers, then they're contributing to coronavirus. So number one is focus groups. I don't want to make this, but I'll let you know the focus group one that we are doing, that seminar, we lowered that price to $200, and we have scholarships available. If you want it, you will have it. And to not get it right now when you could be focus grouping, you know, once a week it's a waste of precious time. So we can be focus grouping our cases. We can be focus grouping the photographs of the truck driver, all the things that we need. One of the things we can be doing, and we learned this from Mr. Keenan in the case he had, and I believe Len did it successfully. I can tell you Roberto Salazar and Kyle Webb in McAllen, Texas, did it. It was beautiful. Rather than just sending away for a driving record with the convictions, they sent away to every place this trucking company drives through, or this driver drives through. Now you might say to me, how do I know it? Well, you know where he lives and you know where the crash occurred. And basically every county you can think of to get direct information on any citations. They were able to come up with at least 4 or 5 more citations than the defense attorney knew about. And those are public record requests. So you don't have to worry that you have to file a lawsuit for discovery. Mr. Keenan will tell you, we do not discover our cases. When we work with referring attorneys, we tell them over and over and over again, we do not discover our cases. We already know what our cases are about when we file them, and we go about doing discovery to prove what we already know. What do I mean by that? What the focus group has already told us our case is about. So you can be working on case selection memos. You can be working on demonstrative evidence. You can be filming before and after witnesses right now. You can do it in person if you're able to in your community. You can set up Zoom meetings in order to be able to do those. Steve Bronson in San Diego does a lot of the interviews over Zoom. He says he actually is getting a lot better information because it's more relaxing and you can record it on Zoom. So you can be lining up your before and after witnesses. If you have a TBI case, you can be getting your brain mapping done. You can make sure that you have all your medical records. You can make sure that whatever demands to produce or requests for admissions or subpoenas that you're going to serve with the complaint are done. So my message to you is public records requests, all of those things, getting on LinkedIn, looking for the driver in the company, getting on all of the services that tell you what people talk about a particular company, digging through all of the internet, finding all the Facebook pages, finding your client's Facebook pages, cleaning up your client before you file. You know, those are all the things that we could and should be doing right now so that when we go back, we are the most prepared, we are the most ready. Because just like everything else, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We come back after all of this to sleepy-eyed defense attorneys who, you can't believe how many of them, they wanted to set up a Zoom depot with one of the referring attorneys. And she sent me copies of these emails where they said, well, let's set this up for practice because we don't know how this works. And she just thought it was hysterical. They were unprepared to change the way they do business. They were unprepared to be able to do everything online the way that we do it. They don't assume that you're doing all the work. And if you are, you will get their attention and you will get their attention early. So I want to give lots of time for the discovery, for the hit list, but I wanted to spend some time really emphasizing focus groups, really emphasizing that focus group seminar that's a day, and making sure you all know that money is not a reason not to attend. But you've got to commit to it all day. Because if you understand, you know, Papa Don's going to take you through specific focus groups and show you what they're saying. You know, Jay said, you know, how are you framing the virus as to whose fault it is for being at trial? You know, Jay, you're going to find out, and the focus, you don't have to. You know, what Mr. Keenan is referencing is the focus group believes that the virus will continue to go on until everybody stops making money on it. They view it right now as that there are people out there making an enormous amount of money. So you use that with your trucking cases, right? They break the rules, they pay people less, enormous amounts of money at our expense. You're afraid that the jury might blame you. Well, I mean, if you watch the news, you have reason to be. You know, they're talking about, you know, I've seen some silly posts on a local listserv of attorneys who want to go sue China, you know, or that the trial attorneys are waiting to sue the employers for people getting sick, you know, and there's a lot of backlash, and there may be things that you will have to do to say, that ain't me, you know, so be careful about what you post because those are a lot of the thoughts. But, you know, my important message to you is that don't miss this vote. You will be surprised. I was surprised by what the focus group people are telling us. When they talked about the tractor trailer drivers being part of the cause as to why this thing is spreading, think about it. It's on the news. That's what they think. And so now we have to play with it to see what do we do with it. So I hope to see, we have just to let you know, on our webinars, we have a 500 person capacity. We have a ton of people that have already signed up. Sign up, don't miss it. Money's an issue, then apply for the scholarship. But for goodness sakes, for the next 2.5 months, you can be doing focus groups all the time on Zoom. I mean, we have the time on all your cases. Anyways, that's it for me. Back to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Mindy. So now we'll get into what to do after you file the lawsuit, but before you're going to take your first deposition. So as we talked about, your discovery is targeted at not really discovering, but proving the system failure, foreseeability, and trying to uncover what the motive is, why they allowed this crash to happen, this trucker to do whatever the trucker was doing, was fatigued, didn't do a pre-check, the tires, maintenance issues, whatnot. As my big bro, Steve Bronson, reminded me, your discovery should be focused on the stools that apply to your case. For instance, the employment stool, qualifications or staffing issues, training, supervision. You want to focus your request for production on getting those policies and procedures to find out what are their minimum hiring standards? What other qualifications do you need for this trucking company or transportation company? What's their training like? What's the training of the trainers? What's their supervision of the drivers? What's the supervision of the trainers? How do they supervise that the trainers are actually training the drivers right? So your requests are going to start off generally to find out, get a feel for the company, learn about the company. Do they even have policies and procedures on any of this written down? Then once you find out more and you can see more things that you want to target your discovery after to prove your system failure in your case, then you do more specific discovery requests after you do the general ones. For hiring documents, you might find out that they use a company called HireRight. You could consider subpoenaing that company because the trucking company may not be giving you complete information of everything that they actually receive from that HireRight company that checks the employment history of the driver and whatnot. If there's a failure to OSIs, you're going to be targeting requests for, which are other similar incidents. Those can be very, very powerful, especially right now with what we're going through. If there's other crashes that the tractor trailer company's been involved in, similar to what happened in your case, you wanna find those out, and you got to know the law in your state of when you're allowed to get those, if you're allowed to get those, how strict your state is. The law is about allowing you to be able to get OSIs. Another thing is kind of what Mindy was talking about with finding as much news out about the company, what Bubba's seeing on TV. You could set up a Google alert for the tractor trailer company in your case to find out if there's any news about crashes, or just to get information about what's going on in the public realm with them, any updates on them, to learn as much as you can about them that you may not be getting from the company itself. You want to target requests for organizational charts to see the relationships between people in your company and the players in your case. How people, who reports to who, and the relationships between them, and how the supervision goes from driver up the chain. You want to get the GPS of the tractor trailer if it had it in there. You may want to subpoena the company that they use for the GPS, because you, again, may not be getting all the information that was available to the tractor trailer company from the tractor trailer company, from the Black Hats. I've had in a case, for instance, a transportation company used Teletrack. And when we subpoenaed the document, the Teletrack for the GPS, we got a lot more information from them than what we were getting, than what the defendants turned over to us. You want to look at what other electronic tracking devices is the company using, what other technology are they using. You want to get the dash cam video if there's any, police body cam video if there is any, 911 call, the pre and post trip inspections and that type of stuff. So as Len has taught me, consider using, doing requests for admissions first to find out, does this company even have policies and procedures on X, Y, and Z? So then you're not fighting over a motion to compel when they object to all of your requests, and then you find out they don't even have these documents, and I just wasted my time bringing them to court, compelling them to answer, and then they don't even have it. So that'll let you find out what they've actually got. Then you do a request for production once if they say they have those things for those things. And then when they object to your request for productions on those that doesn't look good to the judge, when they've admitted that they have it, if they don't have a legit reason, a legit objection, and it's rightfully discoverable. So as you know, the Edge way is we do limited interrogatories. Most of your discovery requests are going to be requests for production. You could do an interrogatory on who the dispatcher is. They usually that the dispatcher has a lot of information about how the company works that's not written down, that you might have in writing. The policies and procedures are say one thing, but the dispatcher might know how the company really works and more information about the crash. And I've seen that they don't, the black hats don't have a lot of dispatchers to post. They are very much more prepping the 30B6s very hardly than the dispatchers on how to handle a deposition. So you might consider taking that deposition if there's a dispatcher in your case. And then if you're suspicious that they're hiding documents, you find out in discovery that they should have produced something that they should have, and they're not producing it, they're messing around, you become suspicious that they're hiding stuff, you could consider doing a corporate rep depo on just on discovery, on document production. But again, you need to know the law in your state, because in Missouri here, we don't have a precedent that it's allowed outright. The case law suggests that once there's a reasonable basis to think that they're hiding things, then, and you have to show proof of that, then you may be allowed. But even then, some judges may not allow you to take that type of a deposition. So you've got different tools that you can use. That's how you should be targeting your discovery, to building that system failure, showing the foreseeability, and trying to find what the motive is. See if any questions came up, and there's none, so I'll turn it over to you, Len.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, there was just a chat question from Daniel Smith regarding the dispatcher and taking that deposition. You still take the corporate rep deposition first, right?
Yes, I'd throw it out to you all too, to what your input is, but yes, I do the corporate rep on the corporate representative on whether it's qualifications, training, what specifically you're going to take that on. But yes, I do the corporate representative as the first deposition.
Okay.
What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's what I was going to start off with, the order of depositions, because it's been a topic that was pretty prevalent on the listserv, on the tractor trailer listserv for a while. And we discussed it, and the order is absolutely, you take the 30B6 first. Then if there are any peripheral company folks, like the safety director, the hiring and qualifications person, vice president, whatever it may be, that, a lot of the bigger companies will have vice president of safety, vice president of hiring, and there might be regional directors as well. Take all of those first. And the reasoning behind it is that if you leave the driver till last, that driver is not going to be as slick as the 30B6, as the corporate guys who have probably been deposed before. They are likely more educated, more experienced, and can, go the company line or prepare for issues if the driver is taken before the 30B6. So if you take the driver's deposition first, then all the professionals in the company have an opportunity to get their story straight or to, adjust it here and there so that it doesn't seem so bad, or so that they can blame it on the driver and try and, cover up the system failure. So that's why we take the 30B6 and everybody else first. And then I'll give you some examples of doing that in a Schneider case that I had last year. So, and one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and that is what we did in a commercial vehicle case that Mindy alluded to, and that is, making sure that you have your driver's route, your truck driver's route. And if you don't get that before you file the lawsuit, then you're going to have it after you file the lawsuit. You might even send an interrogatory or a request for production showing whether or not they had specific routes and so on. So when you're looking at, you have your DMV record, which will have the last 3 years of violations, but those are the last 3 years of violations that are reported to the state by cities and DPS and police departments and so on. What the DMV record won't show is municipalities, parishes, smaller venues that issue violations but don't send them to the state, and the incentive there is that the municipalities will hold on to the money, the violation, the fine. So they keep the money. If they report it to the state, they have to send the state the money. And we were successful in finding, in addition to the 8 violations, including a habitual violator violation, there were others that the company had no idea about, and the driver didn't tell us about, of course, because it wasn't on his DMV record. So my topic really is hit lists. So once you have really digested all of the information that you're getting from their websites, know the trucking company's website better than they know it, and understand that if there is something on their website that has to do with safety, including an entire click on here, safety at Schneider or safety at Home Depot or wherever it may be, understand that there is a reason that they have safety on their website. And the reason is something happened in the past and they thought, oh boy, we've got to put it up there and find it. And it's there, I promise you. I didn't think it would be, Papa Don said, go look for it. And back in 1986 at Bay Limited in Corpus Christi, there was a huge explosion. And that's why they have safety and community and everything that we are taught in the Edge and in the Reptile book about community and safety of the community and how much we care about the community and so on. It's all there for the taking on their websites, guaranteed. And in their driver manuals, employee manuals, handbooks, and so on. Once you get their training books, videos, employee handbooks, etc., know that stuff better than they know it going into that depot. So if this is, if you're preparing for a 30B6 or even a driver depot, a couple of days before the deposition, you won't have enough time to digest, create your hit list, know your hit list inside and out, change your hit list when it becomes appropriate, because you really want about between 5 and 7 hits. You don't want 30 hits. And if you have been to the depot college, you know about hit lists, and I'll run through some of the things that are, legit hits for an edge deposition. But you got to know, you got to write out the important questions. On some of the examples that I'm going to show you, it is very clear that I am reading a question to the deponent, because I want to get it right. I want to get it right in case they say, could you repeat the question? Typically if they say, can you repeat the question, I'll usually have the court reporter repeat the question so that it is verbatim to the question that was asked, and so on. So the preparation for these depots, could get to, on a 30B6 depot in a trucking case or a safety director, you could be putting 40 to 60 hours in easy. Role playing. And a note about role playing: if you're not role playing, you're not going to know, unless you've taken the guy's deposition before, whether he's a wordsmith or she, whether they're going to give you things or whether it's going to be, a fight for the entire day and maybe another day on top of it because of a slippery 30B6. So if you get a reasonable person, you need to know how to ask them questions and where you're going to go and how you're going to get around to all your hits. If they become, the experienced wordsmith, I'm not exactly sure what you're saying. Do you mean that blah, 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 and you have to rephrase and they get you all tied up. Role play that so that you know how to deal with that guy. I can't overemphasize how important role playing is, and role play, like, collaborate with other people on this listserv. And there are people right now that I saw: John Selden, Steve Bronson, Lauren's brother, who's actually going to give us a talk to the Texas listserv today. The Bronsons are everywhere, dangerous plaintiffs' lawyers. And, we role played a case about a month ago with Steve and heard back on the depot, and it went exactly, the way, Steve wasn't surprised by anything that was said by the CEO of the company. And that's because we went, we did that in role play. Okay. So when we're talking about hits, all of the ones that you might think, okay, I've been studying this stuff. I've been going to the seminars. I've been going to the colleges. I know that foreseeability is going to be a hit. And what do you know? That's a hit. So you have to nail down foreseeability. On the tractor trailer listserv, we've talked about the ATRI study, the American Transportation Research Institute study, which I used in my Schneider case to show that there was a 44% more likelihood that this driver, because of prior violations, would get into a crash. And Schneider was like, well, how are we supposed to know that? Oh, well, you guys are on the board, on the research board, and you head the thing out. And you've done that ever since the ATRI studies were started back in 20 years ago, and have been part of all of the updates, and so that's how you know. So if you're not paying attention to that and you're giving these drivers tests and they come up with these important violations, like they're not taking 10 seconds to move from one lane to another, that makes that driver more likely to get into a crash than he or she otherwise would be. So foreseeability. System failures, you got to prove the system failure. You got to think about the system failure. Ask yourself, well before the deposition, how could this have happened? Why did this happen? Betrayal, lies. The best ever that you will get in every single tractor trailer case is hypocrisy, especially when you look at their websites talking about safety and so on. Spreading the tentacles of danger is a hit, and a big hit, because trucking companies are in all of our communities, and a lot of them on their websites will talk about being in all of these communities. And so we're looking out, we care about the little guy. Meanwhile, they don't give a shit about the little guy. So it's all there. Your employment stool, qualification, training, supervision, those are all hits. Your rules are hits. And the rules, those are the things that I will ask verbatim. Do you believe that all trucking companies must hire qualified drivers in order to protect all of us from serious injury and death on our roadways? And then, if they say, well, that's confusing, could you ask it again? Yeah, sure. And then I'll read it again. The motive hit that Don talked about earlier, don't just assume that it's profits over people, profits over safety. It's not always profits over safety. And I mean, it's kind of the fallback, but search for the other motives of how was it that this was able to happen. And it may take a long time to find it. Also, and I'm going to show you real quick, a clip of making the driver the victim of the company. So I'm going to share my screen now. Let's see. Okay, this is a Schneider case. My hit was hypocrisy. Safety first is a slogan. Of course, it says safety first isn't a slogan. So I was going to go after that.
What's important to you? What resonated with you when I said, well, you had 10 months off of doing something completely different than driving a tractor trailer? What was it about that made you think, like, hey, I didn't really think about that, but now that I do, here's what I think?
Objection form.
Well, what it made me think was about the driving test, and my habits of watching the mirrors and that kind of stuff wasn't as good as they used to be. I was out of practice. That's what it made me think about. It wasn't like I wasn't going to get it back, but it wasn't as good as it used to be.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'd had other driving tests and I did great. Yeah. And then this guy pointed that out, and I wonder why I'm doing this now, And then he brought up that I hadn't been driving for a while, and that's not what the deal is.
Yeah, you think that might be what the deal is. The next hit is
what's important to you?
This is the 30B6. One of my hits was the body slam question. So I asked him, can you tell us 3 ways that this wreck could have been prevented?
Potentially, we could have made a right out of the facility instead of making a left. The actual lane change, making it to the first lane, ensuring there were no vehicles if we was making the second lane change. And the third thing may have just been the time of delivery to have changed the time of delivery, so we're not trying to leave in a rush hour situation.
Now, this is a situation where the fellow had made a left turn and then made 2 lane changes really without without looking. Made a left turn in the center lane change and then cut off a bunch of traffic. And my guy ended up in the guardrail without, and he ended up losing his leg. So this was contested, strongly contested by Schneider for 3 years.
Well, what I was thinking was I could have stayed in the inside lane longer. You know, I didn't have to go to that outside lane so quick. And that would have given him more time to see me and me more time to see him.
And you think that you went in from the inside lane to the outside lane pretty quick?
Objection form.
Well, I mean, something caused this. I can't say for certain that that's the main reason. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't have something to do with it.
Yeah, me neither. Now, here's the hit where the driver's the victim. And this guy was a really nice guy. I didn't know what to expect. I role played for a really nice guy. I role played for the company guy. I role played for, you know, the, hey, lawyer, you're a son of a bitch, all of that kind of stuff. And this is what I got. And so
how do you know?
The point I want to make here is if you know your stuff inside and out without having to look at any paper, then you can listen and go with the deponent, whether it's a 30B6 or whether it's a driver.
How do you know?
Here it goes.
What was it about the flatbed that you didn't like?
The tying it down and going through Austin, pulling all that weight up those hills all the time. There's a lot of stress. Big heavy trucks can roll backwards on going up a hill and just going a few feet and stopping and going a few feet and stopping. And when you're getting paid by the mile, you can sit in that traffic for hours. And you go 10 miles in 2 hours, how much money you think you're making?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Oh, I understand.
That's the reason.
So Schneider was paying you by the mile.
Yes, sir.
And that really didn't take into consideration the miserable Austin traffic that left you kind of, you know, getting paid less and less per hour.
Right.
The more the traffic is, the less you get paid.
I wasn't getting paid by the hour.
Sure.
But when you measure it that way, you're not making very good money.
Understood.
Okay, the next clip is from a commercial vehicle case, and the hit was the hypocrisy of the company, and they had plastered all over their website, you know, safety, community. We're all about the communities in which we drive, and so on. And if you'll notice too, there's some STDs in there as well, spreading the tentacles.
How do you know if you're giving a work truck to an employee who has a bad driving history? Do you believe that companies who decide to give company vehicles, in this case, pickup trucks, to their employees must make sure that they're giving the company vehicle to a qualified driver?
Yes.
And what does that mean to you, a qualified driver?
Well, to me, it's a safe driver.
If someone does not have a driver's license and they're driving a company vehicle and it's in between that 3-year time period that you told us about, do you want them in your company vehicle?
No, sir.
Well, so what do you do about it? How do you check it?
We don't.
Why not?
We don't.
I know why not.
We have so many drivers and so many records that we just do not keep up with it.
How many drivers do you have?
Hundreds.
How many hundreds?
700 vehicles on the road. A ballpark figure.
All right, so he just walked right into it. We have so many drivers; they're all on the road, and we don't follow them. So we don't test them. And the question is, why don't you test them? And he says, well, we don't test them. This is a same case, and the same two guys. There was the violations that we had were eight violations.
Was there a point, looking at Exhibit 5, where you would say to Mr. Anzuris, you're fired? We don't want you working for us at all. We don't want you driving our company truck. We don't want you driving your own personal vehicle. We don't want you anymore. Thanks very much for your service. You're terminated.
I don't know that we have a point for that.
Okay. So when you look at all of these violations, they're at no point, not March 22nd.
I'm going to skip ahead.
On October 18th, 2010, would you have fired him?
No, sir.
If you knew in March of 2011 that Mr. Anzuris was considered a habitual violator by the state of Texas Department of Public Safety, you still would have continued to employ him, correct?
That's correct.
And you would have employed him as a foreman, which is what his job was at the time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you know that his job as foreman required him to move from job site to job site across, in this case, across Central Texas.
Yes, sir.
If they're going from one of your job sites to another one of your job sites, and there's 150 miles in between, and you know that they have a really poor driving history,
He won't be driving a company truck.
he'll be driving his own personal vehicle.
Yes,
And that's okay with you,
yes.
even though you know that he has a driving history like you see in Exhibit 5.
It's none of my concern. He is to get to work.
Now, as a supervisor who's in charge of putting employees on the roadways in company trucks, do you want to know if the employee has a driving record like you see in Exhibit 5?
If he's out of a company truck, I don't care what he has. You have to employ people, so.
Yeah, he's a good guy, that guy. Okay, I'm gonna, OSIs, like Lauren was talking about, another hit, another great hit. And especially if you have, the OSIs, because you've talked to other lawyers, because you sued them before, because you've done your homework, you've looked at, you've talked to prior employees that you might have found on LinkedIn, all the work, all the deep dive work that you're doing before these depositions, and you find all of this stuff, you're going to make your hits gold, and they won't know what hit them because they're not doing all of these things. They're not doing the root cause analysis. They're not taking advantage of the fact that they know injuries occur. They have incident reports, but once they have the incident report, it goes in a file somewhere. So those are the things, those are the things that you'll learn or learn more about, in the depot college, and that you can use to just, bash these guys over the head.
Hey, Len.
Yes.
I don't know if you know, but Matt Feller was moved into the dean of the Depot Advanced, And that is having a massive redo, top to bottom, every single bit of it. And it will, I think you and I both agree, you cannot understand the concept of hits, the real concept of role play, and more importantly, how do you turn those hits into the cross-examination of trial? There's no way you can do that. And even in 2 days, it's going to be awfully hard to do it. But we're doing it exactly the way that you started it. And that is, screw the lecture, just show it, okay? Except it's going to be driven by checklists. And it's the typical thing we always do, system. But the one thing I wanted to add about the Gamache case that you and I so triumphantly got an obscene amount of money. Would you agree it was an obscene amount of money? That
I don't know that I'm allowed to officially say that on anything like a webinar or in public.
Is that, are you chastising that I can't say it? Well, I won't even say that it was an obscene amount. How about that? Okay. But there's one dynamic that is part of the dominoes is, this guy was an incredibly nice guy, okay? You want him to be the friggin' victim. And the reason why that worked so well in Gamache was because the claims person, remember what her name? Well, better not say names. Shit, we'll get in trouble. Had gotten the job out of high school, and she was in her 60s, and in a small town where they're based. You talk about an intimate with the company, and she rose to the level of president of the in-house claims management association, pretty damn big. Okay, and we got all the reconnaissances, if you'll recall, on her. We got all the speeches that she made to her peers about how to settle cases. Anyway, bottom line was, we got the clear opinion that she was a nice person too. Okay,
yeah.
And so it was the combination of the nicety that wouldn't work in most damn cases, but that's what drove it.
And one other thing, which is, kind of a nod to the mediation college and the advanced mediation college, is the homework that we did on that adjuster and reading the speeches that she gave to these trucking insurance associations. We just followed what she said was most important and why it was most important. And, yep. At mediation said, hey, someone in your position knows how important this stuff is. And she's like, which was great.
Well, what I'll remember most about this one, if you'll remember, it was like a couple days earlier, we had the tractor trailer referring attorneys at the beach and dedicated a whole day on how to system this mediation. And we, of course, let the record say that you're the dean of the mediation college and know full well about, you need a hit list of the tender spots that's going to move the money. You got to have that going into the mediation to begin with. And we did. We had a damn fine, solid list. But we got to our number. Okay, we got well in excess of the Buffett paradigm.
Yeah.
Without using but 3 of those up. It was sort of like, okay, here we are. We got 7 more damn bombs to drop, but we're at our number. And that just shows how well the friggin' system works. But I can tell you, as soon as Matt and I are done retroing the system on deposition to cross-examination, you and I are going to have to do the same thing with the mediation college.
Mediation, yeah.
This whole virtual thing has just thrown that off. So, but I wanted to, in light of the fact that many of you have mentioned We ain't getting the trial. What's going to happen? Boom, boom, boom. Bullshit. Okay. I predicted it a while ago because the National Judicial Training Center in Reno that trains about 80% of the new judges, they've been hot to trot on this virtual jury trial for several months. It actually started before the virus came in. And let me tell you, it's going to be a reality whether you like it or not. Okay. I'm not a proponent of it, but if it's waiting until next spring, yeah, we'll take a look at it. So two things on that issue. I started to incorporate into the virus template questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, this appears to be working okay, but wait a minute. We're being told by the courts we're not going to be able to get in-person trial dates till probably next spring. Might be a crazy idea because you got to cushion it. Might be a crazy ass idea, but you think maybe we'll do virtual jury trials? You know, those people said, listen, you telling me I don't have to go to the courthouse and park my car and, you know, go through all that hoop to horse shit and that I can, yes, absolutely. You know, and what can we do to make that happen? So Bubba is, now I know there's a lot of downside. We could take the rest of the afternoon to talk about but getting back to the main issue here, which is mediation. You know, the mediator knows you ain't getting top dollar unless you've got an urgency of a trial date or it's right around the corner. That is the key ingredient to getting a case done at high dollar. The certainty of, well, you don't settle with me? Shit. We're going to do the dance and really whoop ass on you. Now, Greg and I have a virtual mediation coming up in Hawaii, I think in the end of this week or the beginning of next. Very far away from the trial, and it's AIG. Thank you very much, our friends at AIG. And so they're cock of the walk right now thinking, well, we don't have to settle right now. We ain't got a trial. Well, guess what? A good chunk of the hit to move the money is going to be, there are some courts around the country that are starting to do virtual jury trials in August. Okay. And many of the big centers around the country, you know, Broward, Miami, et cetera, they're absolutely convinced there's going to be virtual, if there's not going to be in-person jury trials. There's sure to hell going to be virtual jury trials, you know, by the end of the year. So none of this, oh, forget about the leverage of using a jury trial date until next year. You use it right, it's going to happen. So, and I can tell you, because Greg and I were in Chicago, end of 5 weeks of trial, and we settled the case at the second mediation, which was near midnight on Thursday night. With Friday morning, I was given the closing. And we settled. And that's all I can say, other than what's the proverbial, you're happy? Yes, I think Greg was happy too. But this was many weeks ago, in which the virus was still being talked about. And the jury actually passed a note that talked about, is it safe for us to be in this courthouse, and more particularly sitting next to our fellow jurors? Judge, is it safe? Shit. You don't want a jury that is preoccupied by their personal safety. So, you know, we better set aside these differences we may have about virtual jury trials, get about to figuring out how to do them correctly with all the benefits that we have going. So be looking for the hit list based depot cross-exam course is probably about 30, 60 days, which is probably going to be about the time that Len leads the way for us to figure out all the things that need to come into the new mediation. So Lauren, great job, and I'm off.
Thanks, Papa Don. Thank you, Len and Mindy. And I just see there's one question about won't you have a route by when you get the driver's logs? I would caution that the logs may not be what the truth is, what actually was happening. You might find that the GPS doesn't match up with the logs, that there's something else going on. So it's important to get both of those so you can see if anything was being messing around. And then John Carlo also brought up a good point. Wayback Machine is very useful in finding those websites from over time, how they've changed. And yes, and does Mindy or Len, you have anything else you'd like to add before I wrap up?
Yeah, I think you were going to talk about the tractor trailer seminar.
Yes, that's what I'm going to wrap up with. Thank you, Mindy. I just want to remind everybody we're having the full two-day tractor trailer seminar online and a webinar like this so that everybody can watch. And we have topics already that we believe that you're going to be very interested in hearing about, but we also are looking for some additional topics that you want to make sure that we definitely address during the seminar. So if you could throw it out on the listserv, we'll make sure that we incorporate that into the seminar so we can give you all what you want. And also on May 22nd, as we talked about the full day seminar and doing Zoom focus groups is happening. It's very important to hear about that and learn how to do that.
Hey, Lauren, we obviously do evaluations for everything, seminars, colleges, just to find out, did we hit the target? Is this something you want? We don't have that here. So if you could ask everybody just to get on the chat, doesn't have to be long. On a 10-point scale, 10 being perfect, 1 being not worth my time, give us a quantitative on the seminar. And we do listen to you. I mean, every single change that we ever make is usually because somebody says, hey, why don't you do such and so? So if you've got hey, why don't you do such and so? Tell them where to do it. Chat line, Q&A, whatever. Okay.
Chat line's good. Please put your ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 on the chat before you leave here, please.
And also like what you want to see, what you don't want to see, all that kind of thing. Because, we can really streamline these things if we know.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.
All right.